you.
Hello. Well, first of all, thank you very much for asking me to do this. Just to give you an overview, I met Tim and Neve a while back and absolutely loved what they were doing. And I work slightly in the space of mental health myself because my wife and I own a pajama company, which is all under the umbrella of mental health, because some people have good days in pajamas and some people have bad days. And then I did this amazing project in Croydon at Bethlehem, which was fantastic and a really nice opportunity and a very strange space for me to work in. It was very different, but it was really a great opportunity to put art into a space that I totally understood why Neve and Tim set this up, because those spaces need creativity and they need art. And I'm pretty sure that the art that they put in these spaces really helps people. And so that brings me to my workshop. So we did a fantastic workshop with patients from Bethlehem. And what I did was I found a bunch of buildings and we printed out black and white versions of them. And we hand drew mural designs on them, which is kind of quite old school. And I wouldn't normally do it like that. I would normally do it on a computer because it's just the way I work now. But there was something really nice about working on these buildings. So hopefully you've got some printouts. So there's one I'm going to do. There's another. And these were Japanese houses. So don't ask me why, but I got really obsessed with Japanese houses recently. Again, another Japanese house. I mean, who doesn't want to live in a house like that? But then I did find this one. Here's in true Blue Peter style, one I made earlier. So this is like an old brick house that has kind of been modified into a slightly contemporary house. You can see like all the new windows and beams there. But it's the kind of space that I think personally would really look amazing with artwork on it. And what I love about having these kind of, I can put this down because I know you can see it from that one as well. What I love about these kind of murals that you put into spaces that aren't necessarily maybe mural friendly, I just think there's something nice about putting art in places that doesn't quite feel like it should have art. And I think that Bethlehem was a bit like that. Like if you went in there, you wouldn't think, oh, this could be an art gallery. But if you went in there now, it is an art gallery. So there's something quite nice about taking a space and changing the use of it. So that's what we're going to do today. So hopefully you've got some materials. I have got the simplest of materials because I am so analog. I have a ruler, I have a pencil, and I have some really nice markers, well, brush pens, but any kind of felt tip pen is fine. Or you can just draw it in pencil. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this lovely building, which is in Japan. It's in Kyoto, I believe. I can't remember the name of the architect. I could find out, but I'll have to do that after. And so space is really premium in Japan, and you can't just build a house like here people go to the sort of Yorkshire Dales, buy a plot of land and build a massive house. You can't do that in Japan. There's no space, so they build these tiny houses that look incredible, but they're all kind of space driven. So I thought what we could do, and you can do whatever you like on these. If you want to draw giant faces, or if you want to do a big pair of hands, it's just about adding your element of art onto these walls and these buildings. And for me, the idea is that it gives you a sense of scaling, because sometimes when you see people doing murals, you think, oh my gosh, how do they do that? It's huge, it's giant. But when you do it on this side, A4 scale, it kind of like feels quite easy. And then you think, oh, well, you know, there's a design. I can use the grid that's on that building, because as you can see, there's like a grid of bricks and whatever, and you could use that grid if you were actually going to paint it. There's also these little, I'm not sure what they are. I think they're probably indentations where the concrete was molded. Don't know if you can see that. I'm going to get close to the camera, so hopefully you can see the little indentations. There you go. Anyway, that's irrelevant. I am going to start drawing. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to follow the lines. So the edge of the building, I'm going to start off by accentuating that so I can actually see that edge, because where I've printed it, you can't. And I'm going to follow the lines of this really bizarre window, which is really gorgeous. And I think all windows should look like that. And like I said, you don't need in any way to do anything abstract. You can do whatever you like, but it's just about scaling onto this building. But the stuff that I'm going to do is all going to be abstract, because that's kind of what I do. Not all the time, but most of the time. I get asked a lot if I can actually draw. I do, seriously. People say, can you actually draw? I'm like, yeah. But you know, the beautiful thing about drawing is you don't have to be the best drafts person in the world. You just need to enjoy it. And that's the beauty of making art on any level. Yeah, it becomes a business, or you have staff or whatever, but if you don't enjoy it, what's the point? So I kind of, for anyone who has no idea who I am, which is probably quite a few of you, I'm kind of known for doing these folding forms. They're not called anything. I don't call them anything. They're just kind of folding forms. You know, much like the kind of folds in this one. And I do those on pretty large scales sometimes, but I also do tiny ones as well, like A4, A5. And I use, got any tape? No, I think I took it away. Oh yeah, I do actually. Here we go. It's kind of, so it's wrapped up, but you kind of get the idea. So this is all spray paint. And then I use this tape, which is yellow duct tape, which is really gentle on paper. As you can see, that's tissue and it's coming off. So yeah, I just want to kind of show you what I do, because then it'll kind of maybe give you a bit of an idea. So that's one of my little mini paintings. And I love making these. I spend hours making them, and I do like 4, 5, 6 all at a time. And I use that tape, which is great. And I leave that there because there's a nice bit of colour in the screen. Okay, where am I? So I'm drawing. Hopefully you're all drawing. You better be. You need loads of nice concepts for this. So you just got to think, if I was going to paint a massive wall or a massive building like this, what would I do? What would I want to do? Could add some color as well. So I'm going to kind of mirror the shapes in some bits, but then in some I'm going to have them just go around. Like I said, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just making it up as I go along. Hopefully that's exactly what you're doing. So I'm going to start at the top. Oh, sorry, I'm going to turn my email off so it doesn't go ping like that. I've got my brush pens, which are lovely, and they make such nice. And I'm going to try and stay in the lines. It's not always going to work. And you don't have to stay in the lines. It's not the most important thing in the world. In fact, sometimes if it comes out, it's quite nice. You get nice, happy accidents. But the good thing about the brush pens is you can turn them on the side and you can get quite a big space covered quite quickly. And then with the other side, you have a kind of thin, if you really want to be super neat and super tidy, you can use that edge. But to be honest, I'm quite happy doing the brush. The brush is fine. I feel a bit like Bob Ross.
Who doesn't love Bob Ross?
Ah, love Bob Ross. Bob Ross is great. Anyone who doesn't know who Bob Ross is, get on YouTube. You'll be so thankful that I introduced you to Bob Ross. And I'm going to get another blue. And I'm going to go on this side. Now, the good thing about these pens is because there's a slight translucency, so kind of transparent, you can see all the stuff in the background. So you can see there's like that ladder, staircase type thing there. Ladder, it's not a staircase. And you can see all the background quite clearly. And as it dries, it kind of sits in quite nicely. And color as well. I think it's really important how people use and adapt color. And I always like to use colors that don't necessarily work or have a little bit of discomfort with each other. Because I always think it creates a more interesting space. Some people, you know, tend to use color palettes that are kind of all very thought out and worked out, that they all sit together really nicely. I tend not to do that. I tend to kind of leave that way. I tend to work with kind of odd colors, I'd say, that just have very different reactions to each other.
We've had Angie's just typed in that she thinks Bob Ross is an awesome artist.
He is legend. Is he still alive? I don't know.
Oh, he died, sadly.
Oh, well, this one's for Bob. So I'm going in with some pink. Like, who doesn't love pink? Pink is the best color. And I get quite known for, I use this fluoro pink, which is kind of a little bit like this. Can't really see it on the camera. Doesn't look so fluoro, but it's very fluorescent, trust me. And I love using this color. And it stems from, my mum bought me a shirt when I was a kid, which was fuchsia pink. And I was probably 6 or 7. And I love this shirt so much. It's pretty much the color of this pink that I'm using now. And so I always had an affinity for pink. And I think, you know, this whole kind of blue for boys, pink for girls, it's just so antiquated and ridiculous, because pink should be for everyone. Pink is just great.
Remi, we've had a really interesting question from Dorothy.
Yeah.
Asking how you match the colours with the felt tips and the paint colour on the buildings. So I guess that, like that pink, it must be quite hard to choose a colour that goes on the wall that's like that felt tip.
Yeah, I guess with that, there's a certain element of freestyle with it. But I do have a Pantone book, which is a fantastic source of information. And you kind of like get to know color a bit. So with the piece I did for Croydon, for example, I matched all the colors to hexachrome numbers, and then matched that to RAL number. It sounds complicated. And then I went into my little DIY shop in Dulwich and I said, can you mix these RAL colors for me? And they're like, yeah, no problem. And they're like within 3 to 5% of exactly what you need. So I think it's one of those things, once you kind of get your head around how to make the colors or how they're made, and where you can get them made, it's not that hard. With spray paint, it's different because the colours you get are the colours you get. So I guess it's about having that similarity or as close as you can get. But then it's also nice to have a kind of, you know, sometimes you get surprises and you get a colour and it's not quite what it is in the design, and it will look great and it will be far better. Sometimes it's not, but mostly it is. So what I'm going to do here is, in my thing, I'm going to put some shadows. And I'm going to get a slightly darker colour than that, and I'm going to go over it and make it look like there's a shadow there. That is a good question. It's like colour is so important, and when you're making art, like getting your paints right and getting the right kind of materials, and even when you start making art, trying to find what materials you want to work with, I think is so much fun and really important to where you go and what you do with those materials. I kind of, you know, when I started doing graffiti in 1984, and I know what you're thinking, he can't possibly be that old. I am.
2 years old.
Yeah, I was 2. It was all that decision was made for me. You know, it was like spray paint. So I didn't really have a choice. Now I have a choice, and I can use whatever I like, and I can experiment and have fun, and which I do all the time. But yeah, that choice was kind of, it was made for me, which is quite weird. But it's interesting because I think a lot of the people see the kind of work I do now, and they don't have any kind of link to it being graffiti art or have any of that kind of a connotation. You know, if you didn't know my background, you'd just say, oh, you know, he's a contemporary artist, and I guess I am, but you know, I kind of went through this whole different way of getting to where I am. And it's interesting, Tim, when you were asking about the talk I did with the RA, I remember being asked to go to this like kind of launch thing, and somebody said to me, oh, where did you train? And I always hate when people say that to me. And I had to say, on the streets. And I think they thought I was joking. And I was like, no, really? That's kind of where I train? It's quite funny. They were a bit shocked. They didn't really know what to say, which I also quite liked. But, you know, just doing things a different way. You don't have to be conformist all the time. And art is not about conformity. So I hope everyone is having fun adding things. I don't know if you've even got to colour yet. I'm quite quick. I just throw things in and go, oh, and get really busy really quickly. Feel free to go slow. You don't have to like rush anything. There's no time limits on this. And if I kind of finish up on this one and start another one, that doesn't mean that you have to.
I guess the beauty of this, Remi, is that you can try one, and then if you don't like what you've done, you can just print it off and do it again.
I've lost you a bit, Natalie. Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Oh, I was just saying the beauty of this way of working is that you can, if you don't like what you've done, you can just try it again. Oh. I think we're just, well, I can see you. I think we're back.
Okay. Yeah.
I can see you.
A glitch in the matrix.
Oh.
Just a glitch in the matrix. That's all it was.
With
Sorry, so I didn't hear what you said there.
I just was saying that the beauty of doing it this way is that you can try out different things, and then if you
Yeah.
don't like what you've done, you can just print it off and try it again. There's no wrong way of going about it.
And it's one of those things, one of the most asked questions when you're painting walls, other than "Are you Banksy?" is what do you do if you make a mistake, which always cracks me up, because the beauty of paint is paint goes over paint, and especially spray paint. It's because you can do this thing called cutting back, where you could do black, and then the paint's so strong and the pigment's so strong now. If you had a white or yellow, you just cut back over it. And I always say, well, you just go over it. You know, if you make a mistake, you just repaint it. And people, it blows people's minds, which I think is interesting, because it's a really often asked question. People really struggle to get their heads around it. But yeah, this the nice thing about working on paper as well is that you can move it around. You can look at it. You can, you know, push back. You can. It kind of looks physical already, whereas on a computer it always looks like a graphic. When you have paper and pencil, I just think it's really. I think it's a really good process. I think any artist, even if they're not the best drafts person, I think just drawing is such a fantastic way of keeping your hand pliable and ready. And I don't think enough artists draw, as you know, especially in the digital age, it's too easy to just knock it up on a computer and Photoshop it. And you know, and I'm as guilty as the next person, but I do enjoy drawing, and I try and draw a lot. And, you know, you could do nice effects like, you know, stippling, and we could do some stippling, which is translated to little dots. Stippling is actually a style of tattooing. So instead of pushing all the ink in like you would into someone's arm, you do it in dots. And you can do it with pen or pencil or marker or whatever. And it's just doing these little dots, and you can peter them out. So it kind of, it's like a half toning, I guess. You know, all these things, you couldn't do that on a computer. You wouldn't be able to do that on a computer, but you could do it on this. It kind of, you know, from a distance, from looking here, that to me looks like it's fading out, but it's just dots.
So we've just had a question from Lisa saying, do you prefer to work on paper first or on a computer screen first?
Do you know, Lisa, I think I would actually always prefer to work on paper. Sadly, I don't, usually because of time constraints, and also because of how people expect to be handed over the projects, or the ideas of the project. So people kind of expect it to look almost how it's going to be, whereas this has a much more kind of analog feel. But I think I would always rather draw and work on paper just because it's nice. I think it shows a skill as well, you know, to people that you can draw and are willing to draw and willing to put that extra little yard into what you do. So I'm going to do a bit of shadow here. I might do some more of the stippling, which I'm really pleased with myself that I even remembered what that's called, because I nearly forgot.
We've had another question asking, how do you measure to trace on walls?
So there's so many tools. I love to stay analog. So I use string, which is a brilliant tool. Do not underestimate the power of string. String is awesome. And most buildings like this, you know, they kind of have a grid. It might be windows, it might be doors, it might be bricks, it might be breeze block. But they nearly always, you know, no wall is just a flat concrete facade. You know, life just isn't like that anymore. So there's always windows or things to kind of create the illusion of a grid. And what I do is I use those things to measure up. But, you know, string is a fantastic tool. I use that a lot. And even the way I sketch the murals up, I usually use pencil. People are like, what, you draw on the building with pencil? And I'm like, yes, it's great. It's just, you know, it's a white wall, draw, you know, pencil goes on anything. And then obviously, you know, once you've added paint, that kind of dissipates into the building. So, or alternatively, you know, you can't really see it unless you're super, super close. Yeah, there's all kinds of, they're not even tricks. They're just like really obvious ways of doing things to paint walls. And but one of my favorite things I love doing is circles. I love painting giant circles. I did a mural in Rabat in Morocco on the side of the museum Mohammed VI, which is the king's personal museum. Because when you're the king of Morocco, you can build your own museum. And he built it in front of his house so he could look at it every day. And then one day I got commissioned to go to Rabat and paint this museum wall. And I did this giant black circle that was then broken up and had these kind of graphic elements coming in. And when I got there, they expected me to have like projectors or some kind of like laser. And I turned up with a ball of string, a hammer, and a nail. And they were like, what are you going to do with that? I'm like, I'm going to paint a giant circle. And I did. So yeah, never underestimate the power of string. And I'm always impressed with how people did things before technology as well. So that's kind of how we're looking. How are we doing for time? I might start another one.
I've got another 15 minutes.
Yeah, so I'm going to start another. So look, we've got quite far on that. There's some minimal space. Like if I was actually doing this as a mural, I would probably balance it out. Balance is important when making art of any kind. Let me get a nice red. I would balance this with a little bit of red or maybe black at the bottom, just to give you the idea of how I would approach it. And I would let that line run off that stair there. God, I love these brush pens, they're so good. They're also really good for doing calligraphy as well. If anyone wants to do like calligraphy on a building, that would be really cool. So yeah, let's move on to another one. Let's go into this one, which is a gorgeous building. This is a house, private house, again in Japan. Don't ask me why we're on the whole Japan thing, but we are. They also have what looks like a Bugatti in the sky, I would say, possibly. So yeah, like with this, maybe we'll do something a little bit different. So what am I gonna do? Because we were just talking about circles, I'm gonna do a circle.
As you're doing that circle, Remi, we've had a question just asking, you put the nail in the wall to link the string shape.
Yeah.
You could just say about how you actually do that.
So you put the nail in the wall in your center point, which would be here with this one. So that would be your center point. So you put the nail in there. The string would be out here, and then you'd have your brush, pencil, or spray can or whatever, and you literally just pull the string taut as you were going round, and it would get that circle. And it would be almost perfect, I think, hopefully. That's the idea. And then do one inside as well. Oh, there we go.
and Remi, not to talk about someone else's workshop while we're doing yours, but we do have a YouTube channel that has recordings of all the workshops if you want to have a look at any of the older ones. And Ryan Mosley did a workshop about the way that he goes about drawing mural too.
Oh, really? I need to see that.
Yeah, so so feel free to have a look at our YouTube channel. You can see all the workshops, including Remi's, which will be up there soon after too.
And the thing about murals as well, Tim, is they don't have to be giant. You know, all it means is wall painting. And not everything I do is giant murals. You know, some of them are just like in a room for private clients or friends or whatever. They don't have to be like 10 stories high. And what's interesting when you do stuff like this is you do see the space change. And that's the beauty of shapes and forms. And even if you were doing a face, like where this circle is, you know, you could very easily draw a face or, you know, portrait in that space. And you're working with negative space as well. Like if you did it in the middle, it would be very geometric and obvious. But if you kind of like put it more to the left, or if it was kind of like, I mean, I'll draw it just to give you an idea. So, you know, like it had a nose there and an eye there, and see, like I can draw just. And that was your head. There's a chin there. There's an ear somewhere here. You know, you just like completely change the dynamic of how that looks. And to me, the kind of way space is used, I always think is so important. Lips, what do lips look like? Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm drawing a portrait. I never do stuff like that. Sorry, I'm totally digressing, but you know, the idea is to show you that you can do things on the side of buildings. It's not to show you that you can do geometric things on the side of buildings.
Oh, Remi, we've just lost your other camera there. I think that I can see something that's come up. Oh, you're back. Perfect, perfect. Thank you.
So yeah, I'm doing, this one's slightly different. It's a geometric circle with a face. Don't ask me why, but there you go. I'm trying to make his jawline geometric as well, because otherwise people think I'm getting it wrong. The nice thing about markers is they're kind of messy, but they're kind of easy to use as well. People think that because, you know, my work's really neat and sharp that I never do anything messy. I really like messy work. I think it's nice to do things that are messy. It's nice to have fun with your materials and do a little nostril. Or I don't know what that bit of the nose is called. Maybe someone does there. A little bit of shadow under the lip. A little bit of shadow under the nose. I'm not going to do the whole ear, but it's something like that. I don't know. And then you've got to remember, obviously, don't go over the window because you can't, because it's a window. Or you can, but then you won't be able to see out the window.
someone at Croydon PQ did a really nice thing where they drew around their hand over the building, which was quite a nice.
Yeah, which was really cool. There were some really good ones from that workshop, actually. I was very impressed. It's always nice to see how people approach things like this. It's yellow work. Yay! Let's put some yellow in. I think my favourite one in the Croydon PQ workshop was the guy who did really flat colours, and it kind of looked like Warhol. I thought they were great. And there was a guy doing calligraphy there as well, actually, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was.
So, you know, like with this, you still got loads of negative space. I love negative space. People always think if it's there, you have to paint it. You don't at all. It's not the point. It's kind of messy, but I kind of like that. So I would probably, if I was doing this for real, I'd probably get a bigger circle template, and I'd probably do like just a really thin black line, like over there, maybe slightly bigger. So it just pops out there. Or maybe fill that, I'm not sure. But the whole point of doing these kind of exercises is like you work out what it is you want to do with the space, because that's the hardest part. It's looking at these giant blank canvases and going, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And it can be daunting, even when you've been painting walls for like 30 years. Sometimes you just look at them and go, oh, crikey. How am I going to do that? And then you start, and then before you know it, you're like, you know, halfway through. And I'm hoping that all this drawing is helping you relax, because drawing does help you relax. It's been proven. I'm going to do a last bit on this one. How are we doing for time? We're 42.
Yeah.
We've got another few minutes, but if we run on, it's totally fine.
Okay, so I'm going to do a really simple design on this. I'm going to totally work with what's here. You've got all these amazing lines and angles. So I'm literally going to leave the middle space. And do the same on this one. And I'm going to go full primary, because I love primary colours. And I'm going to do red, blue, and yellow. Kind of slightly Mondrian-esque, if you know who Mondrian is. If you don't, you should look him up. He was a great artist. And I think he's the most used artist on teacups and tea towels and mugs and things like that. I don't think any other artist has been used the way he's been used. See, brush pens, great, coloring so quick. Get a nice blue. Oh, I ran out the lines there. Don't tell anyone. I love the noise of the pens that's coming out of the computer. I'm getting like this weird echo of it. It's really cool. nice yellow.
So we've just had a question, Remi, about the artist that you were talking about. It was Mondrian that you were talking about as your inspiration for this one.
Yeah. Go ahead. What's the question?
Oh no, it was just it was someone was just asking to repeat the name of the artist.
Oh, Mondrian. Oh yes. So Mondrian, he was brilliant. He wasn't very successful when he was young. It was only in later life, and it was mainly because of a British artist who was a huge fan of him, called Ben Nicholson, who brought him to the UK and introduced him to galleries and stuff like that. And he was like, "Oh, this guy's great. You've got to look at his work." And Barbara Hepworth, who is his wife at the time, and he brought him to the UK and kind of made him famous, more famous than Ben Nicholson, actually, but he was such a fan, he thought that the world needed to know who he was. So there, a little black square, because I love a black square. There's an artist called Malevich who's really famous for just doing black squares. And then we'll do a teeny tiny little red one here. Look. There we go. And that's that one done.
Amazing.
Right. Three artworks in about 30 minutes. It's pretty cool. Are you Remi? Could you hold them up to the camera in front of you?
I certainly can.
See all three.
Oh, hang on. I'm just doing it now. Wait,
Okay.
There we go.
So that's our Mondrian-esque building.
Nice.
Very simple, but I think that would be quite effective as a mural. And then the first one we did was a little bit more technical with lots of negative space.
Great.
And then weird kind of with a slight portrait involved and giant circles.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Remi. I think you've kind of shown so many different ways of approaching buildings and so much inspiration. So if I'm just going to spotlight myself here. Great. So what I'm going to do is shortly after this session, we'll email a link to the survey, a link to the Dropbox where you can upload pictures of the artwork that you've made. And we'll also resend the link to the PDFs that Remi's been working on. So if you can print them off later on or at a time you like and, have a go. So thanks so much, Remi. That was really, really great.
To seeing people's versions. I can't wait to see what people do.
It's going to be, we'll look forward to uploading them. And next week's workshop is with an artist called Richard Rawlins. So again, that'll be at 2:00 here on Thursday. So Tim, is there anything else?
No, just thanks everyone for joining, and thanks Remi. That was
Thanks for listening in, people. Very grateful.
Perfect. Thanks so much, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.